guys, let's play with Texas Know-How again. We're going to introduce you to our newest series, and it's going to be restoring this Ford truck. It's a F100 1967, and we got it from a guy in Richmond, Virginia. The truck was originally, we looked the serial number up, built in Richmond, and it's been there its whole life. We're west of DC now, so we're still in that same area. But let me walk you through the truck. I'm going to walk you around it a little bit and show you what we found when we got it. It is an original 3-speed with a FE engine in it. It's got the V8, a 352. And that is what the serial number says, came in it as well. So I'm a third owner. So the guy I bought it from said that he knew that the guy ahead of him was the original owner, and he didn't do anything to it, and the second guy didn't do anything to it, so I think it's the original. I'll pop the hood here, show you what we got. We did replace the battery. We're trying to get it just where it was a runner, you know, where it would dependently, you know, get us down the road. And it has a new interstate battery in it. Well, it's not new, but it was a better one than was in it. We changed the vacuum advance on it, put some new hoses around, so the heater hoses and the main radiator hoses. It's got fairly new belts on it when we got it, and they had replaced the alternator as well. So the alternator was already replaced. The only other thing we've done is I can tell that the brake master cylinder is fairly new. The other thing I know is that they swapped the steering gearbox at some point, and that is a later model, maybe a 68 or 69, which they did change it from 67 to 68 and on. So they had to radius a little bit down here on the frame, which I don't really like doing, but some of you guys online that know how they do that, that was a real popular mod because the 67 was a unique steering box, and they're hard to come by and hard to get reworked, and so a lot of times they would go to the much more abundant 68 through 72 steering gearboxes on these. So that's been changed. Let's walk around the truck. It's fairly solid. It's got some rust on it. The hood though is all in good shape. We've seen some rust down here on the inner panels, so we'll work on that. If you come around, it almost passed inspection. One of the reasons it didn't pass inspection was because of this sidewall nick right here. The tire is holding air good, but it has a nick. So, you know, what we're trying to do with this truck is get it to be a good everyday runner, so we'll have to replace the tires. It does have some rust down here. This is a real common spot to have rust, the bottom of the door panel, and it had a little injury here when we got it. And you can tell they had some duct tape on that to try to keep the water out, but we pulled the duct tape off to look at it. Obviously right here where the panels go together, we've got some rust going on, so we'll have to get in here and clean this up. It's been worked. The truck is a working truck. The guy that had it before us was in construction, and he used this to haul stuff to the dump. So somebody's put some boom tubes on it. These big tubes, I don't really like those, but that's what's on it for dual exhaust. And if you look down the side of it from there, you can see it's fairly straight. I mean, these trucks, a lot of times the panels kind of get bow to them. So if you're looking from that angle, you can tell this bows out a little here, and then this bows out a little here, and they kind of come together at the seams. And that's something that's really hard to straighten up on an old truck, is to get that where it looks just straight all the way down the truck. So we'll have to work on that. A little more rust on the bottom of the doors here. It was a custom cab, so it's got the chrome around the bottom of the cab here, and it's got chrome around the windshield up here. So inside it's got he put a dash cover on it, because I'm sure that dash under there is cracked. So there's a little dash cover on it. Everything's fairly original. This is where the brake was on these. The key here, we got lights and wipers. The horn does not work, so they added a little horn button over here beside the column. That is also the emergency brake light. It's a real expensive thing to aftermarket. It's right here, it's missing. And this little hole right here, so that when the brake's down, that light's usually on. Bench seat, metal door panels. So this can all be cleaned up. This kind of stuff's missing, but you can get all this stuff pretty readily. And this was the custom cab, had this little piece of trim that goes around that. So anyway, let's take you into the shop, and we'll take you into the shop and show you kind of a donor motor that we got, because one thing we did discover when we drove this thing a little while was it is consuming antifreeze. And when they're consuming antifreeze, that normally means a head gasket is broke or a cracked head. Could be a cracked block, but more than likely on this FE engine, it's a gasket. So we're going to take the heads off of this 352, and when we got to looking, what we found was, if you can look right in here, you see that bolt coming through for the exhaust manifold? That one and the one behind it are both cracked, and this little ear is the head. So with that crack, we decided we need to source some new heads so we can put that back together correctly, and we found, and this is also a 2-barrel manifold right here that came stock on this engine. So let me show you what we got in the shop in here, and I'll show you where we're at with that engine. Let's go in there. Alright, so these are the heads that came off of a 390 engine, which is very compatible with the 352. In fact, the blocks, I'm told, are exactly the same, and a lot of 390 FE blocks had 352 stamped on them because they just all came out of the same mold. But I wanted to show you when I was trying to take the exhaust manifolds off of these two heads. Now these have been down to the machine shop and cleaned up and magnaflux, and they are good. There's no cracks in them, and the head surface is flat. They don't think we even have to mill it to flatten the head. We did a check on it. Everything is well underneath 0.02 of an inch, so that's good and flat. So what I was going to show you though is, see these bolts? I broke off all 4 of the top ones on those ears. This is why those ears are broke on the truck out there. All of these heads snapped off when I tried to take those manifolds off, and 2 on the other head. So I've got 2 holes that are open out of 8. So I'm going to be removing 6 of these on the drill press today, doing bolt extractions. I'll have to take my time. I'll probably drill 10 times to get the right width, and then I'll finally flake out those threads and then run a tap through it. I did want to show you that when you look at the serial number here on the heads, it's stamped in here. This stands for C is 60, 1, automobile, and it's the engine group. And then the 6090-A is the Rev A of the first rev of these heads, are the exact same that's on the truck. So the heads were interchangeable between the 352 and the 390, and maybe even some other ones, the 427 maybe, I don't know. What they changed to get the different cubic inches is the stroke and the bore of the cylinder on the block. That's what they changed to get the different cubic inches. I also want to show you that now that we've got these kind of, we hot battered them, and that's at the shop, and that's why they're all cleaned up. We have not bead blasted any of this internal stuff, but they'll do that for me as well. These seats right here, we're going to get a 3-angle grind on them, so the seats will match up. But I wanted to show you, they've already cleaned up and ground the valves, and they turned out really nice. I mean, you can see here that valve's got a nice 45-degree angle on it. You know, they bead blasted it, cleaned it up. We looked at these shafts. There's no real big wear marks. This is where the wear marks would be. There's no wear marks on it, and they just cleaned up great. That's one of the exhaust valves there. As you guys know, the exhaust valves are always smaller because you're under high compression. And an explosion just happened in the cylinder, and that's why they don't have to be so big. Now you're naturally aspirating and getting your intake in, so the intake valves are always going to be bigger so that they can let that flow come in, because it's getting sucked in by the piston with vacuum, but nothing like the explosion that's pushing the exhaust out. So we looked at those, they look good, no wear marks again, so I think all of our valves are fine. So we've got a good set of heads, a good set of valves. We just got to get these broken off bolts out today. And then I was going to just pan around here and show you the rest of this. So this was the 3-speed tranny that was on the 390, and that came out of a truck in a pasture, so a lot of this stuff is pretty rusted and nasty looking. There's the old fuel pump with a fuel filter on it. Here's our water neck for our thermostat. It had a hydraulic clutch in it, that old 59. These are the valve covers, and I wanted to show you. Let me just flip one of these over. Right there, it says Thunderbird on it. I don't know if you can make that out, but imprinted in there on each one of the valve covers it says Thunderbird. And because those valve covers don't have any place to put in oil, like an oil top or a breather or anything, the way they did it back then was they had this as this is the intake manifold. They had this to add the oil right here. So you would take that off, add your oil here. and this is also a breather type cap, so you could vent the crankcase here. It had another crankcase vent in the back of the manifold back here, and it had a tube that went off and down underneath the truck to breathe those fumes down under the truck. But I think this manifold right here probably weighs 75 pounds. It may even weigh 80. It is super duper heavy. Was hard to take off of the block. Let's move over here and I'll show you. These are the valve trains that came off of the 390. They've got these oil return chutes, and I just took these 4 bolts off and took the entire valve train off at the same time, left it alone. There are oiler holes in this pipe right here, so it's got to be adjusted right so that it feeds the oil. So I've not messed with any of that. I don't know that I'm going to put the 390 back together, but just in case, kind of kept it together. This is the block right here. If you come on back, and this morning we shot a little WD-40 in these cylinders and got a few of these lifters out. They all look like they're in good shape. Again, I don't think the 390 has very much, you can see here, easy to turn that crank over, and those pistons are just turning around, no problem. And you can see these lifters lifting and changing what they're doing right there. See some of those popping up and down. Cams working, everything's working. So I think the engine was running probably when somebody parked it 17 years ago. The owner told us it was sitting out there that long. And it basically was protected because it was completely oil coated. And so all these head bolts and everything came out fine. It had the original Ford head gaskets on it, so I think it's a good donor engine is what I'm saying. So guys, that's going to be our next series. We're going to be working on a Ford F100 1967 model. And stick around. We'll be labeling these 1, 2, 3. We'll just keep doing that until we get through this project. But next step is to get these heads all fixed up and get a valve job done on them at the machine shop. Pull this engine out, switch the heads, at least maybe change some other things on it. Stick around. It should be a lot of fun. For now, this is Clay, Texas Know How. We'll see you.